Illinois CDL General Knowledge Test.
Question 1. Convex curved mirrors.
Show a wider area than flat mirrors. Make objects appear closer than they really are. Make objects appear larger than they really are.
Answer.
Show a wider area than flat mirrors.
Question 2. When driving through roadway work zones, you should
watch for sharp pavement drop-offs. Turn on your parking lights. Reduce speed only if workers are close to the roadway.
Answer.
Watch for sharp pavement drop-offs.
Question 3. Which of these tell you that cargo contains hazardous materials?
Both of these answers are correct. A 4-inch, diamond-shaped hazardous materials label on the container. A hazardous materials placard on the vehicle.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 4. Which of these statements is not true about engine belts in hot weather?
You can check the tightness of belts by pressing on them. Cracking is likely to occur, but it is not a safety threat. Loose belts will not turn the water pump hand or fan on properly.
Answer.
Cracking is likely to occur, but it is not a safety threat.
Question 5. The most common cause of serious vehicle skids is
driving too fast for road conditions, overinflated tires, poorly adjusted brakes.
Answer.
Driving too fast for road conditions.
Question 6. What should you do before driving if you are sleepy?
Drink some coffee. Take some caffeine pills. Get some sleep before you drive.
Answer.
Get some sleep before you drive.
Question 7. When should the pre-trip inspection report from the last driver be reviewed?
During your pre-trip inspection. Once per week. It doesn't have to be reviewed.
Answer.
During your pre-trip inspection.
Question 8. What are 2 special occasions where you should downshift?
Before starting up a hill and when going around a curve. When starting off fast and speed shifting. Before starting down a hill and before entering a curve.
Answer.
Before starting down a hill and before entering a curve.
Question 9. When driving at night, use your low beams when an oncoming vehicle is within
300 feet, 400 feet, 500 feet.
Answer.
500 feet.
Question 10. To help you stay alert while driving, you should
schedule trips for hours you are normally asleep. Take short breaks before you get drowsy. Take cold medicine, if you have a cold.
Answer.
Take short breaks before you get drowsy.
Question 11. Measuring back blood alcohol concentration is done by measuring a person's
height, age, body weight.
Answer.
Body weight.
Question 12. When roads are slippery, you should
stop and test the traction while going up hills. Take turns as carefully as possible. Decrease the distance that you look ahead of your vehicle.
Answer.
Take turns as carefully as possible.
Question 13. What is an escape ramp?
A quick way to get out of town. Ramps to get on and off an interstate highway fast. Ramps that are located a few miles from the top of a downgrade to help you stop.
Answer.
Ramps that are located a few miles from the top of a downgrade to help you stop.
Question 14. Which of these is a proper use of vehicle lights and flashers?
Flashing your brake lights to warn someone behind you of a hazard that will require slowing down. Flashing your brake lights to warn someone behind you that you are going to stop on the road. All of these are correct.
Answer.
All of these are correct.
Question 15. Which of these statements is true about vehicle fires?
If the cargo or box trailer catches on fire, open the doors as soon as you can. A burning tire should be cooled with water. If your engine is on fire, open the hood as soon as you can.
Answer.
A burning tire should be cooled with water.
Question 16. To prevent brake fade, you should
select a gear that will keep your vehicle to a safe speed on steep downgrades. Apply constant hard pressure on the brakes. Coast down hills that are not very steep inclines.
Answer.
Select a gear that will keep your vehicle to a safe speed on steep downgrades.
Question 17. Overloading can have a bad effect on
speed control, steering. Both of these are true.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 18. Which of these statements is true about warning other drivers of a stopped vehicle?
Keep the vehicle's taillights on to warn other drivers. Move the rear reflective triangle back if the driver's vision is obscured to within 500 feet. Put out your emergency warning devices within 5 minutes.
Answer.
Move the rear reflective triangle back if the driver's vision is obscured to within 500 feet.
Question 19. For your safety, when setting out reflective triangles, you should
carry the triangles at your side. Hold the triangles between yourself and oncoming traffic. Keep them out of sight while you walk to the spots where you set them out.
Answer.
Hold the triangles between yourself and oncoming traffic.
Question 20. Which of the following statements about backing is true?
Both of these are true. Backing is always dangerous. You should back and turn towards the driver's side whenever possible.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 21. Over length, over width, or overweight loads require.
Both answers are correct. Driving limited to certain times. Flashing lights.
Answer.
Both answers are correct.
Question 22. Which of these is true about the radiator shutters and the window front?
The window front should be closed tightly. The engine may overheat if the window front is left open. You should remove ice from the radiator shutters.
Answer.
You should remove ice from the radiator shutters.
Question 23. What is a pull-up?
Pulling forward while backing a trailer to reposition it. A maneuver performed by a tow truck to pick up an overturned truck. When pulling off the shoulder, you pull up until the trailer is straight.
Answer.
Pulling forward while backing a trailer to reposition it.
Question 24. You must drive on a slippery road. Which of these is a good thing to do in such a situation?
Use a smaller following distance. Slow down gradually. Apply the brakes during turns.
Answer.
Slow down gradually.
Question 25. You are driving a 40-foot vehicle at 35 miles per hour. The road is dry, and visibility is good. What is the least amount of space you should keep in front of your vehicle to be safe?
6 seconds. 2 seconds. 4 seconds.
Answer.
4 seconds.
Question 26. Which of these is a good thing to do when driving at night?
Drive slowly enough to stop within the range of your headlights. Keep your instrument lights bright. Look directly at oncoming headlights only briefly.
Answer.
Drive slowly enough to stop within the range of your headlights.
Question 27. Name some suspension system defects.
Broken leaves in leaf spring and cracked or broken spring hanger. Leaking shock absorbers. Both of the answers are correct.
Answer.
Both of the answers are correct.
Question 28. When should you wear seat belts?
Whenever you are hauling hazardous materials. Only in states where law requires it. Anytime you are in a moving vehicle.
Answer.
Anytime you are in a moving vehicle.
Question 29. You are checking your tires for a pre-trip inspection. Which of these statements is true?
Tires of mismatched sizes should not be used on the same vehicle. A tread depth of 2/32 inches safe for the front tires. Radial and bias ply tires can be used together on the same vehicle.
Answer.
Tires of mismatched sizes should not be used on the same vehicle.
Question 30. Which of these is true about hours of service?
You should balance your hours of service with enough sleep to keep you alert. After 1,000 hours of service, you will be exempt from certain regulations. You must take a break after every 2 hours of driving.
Answer.
You should balance your hours of service with enough sleep to keep you alert.
Question 31. Turn signals should be used
At least 250 feet before turning or changing lanes. At least 350 feet before turning or changing lanes. At least 100 feet before turning or changing lanes.
Answer.
At least 100 feet before turning or changing lanes.
Question 32. Implied consent means when you sign the driver's license application form, you
give your consent to be tested for alcohol in your blood. Give your consent for your vehicle to be inspected for alcohol. Understand that you may drink alcohol now before driving.
Answer.
Give your consent to be tested for alcohol in your blood.
Question 33. Which of these statements is true about speed management?
Shady parts of the road allow better traction than open areas. Road surfaces will freeze before bridges. On slippery roads, it takes longer to stop and is harder to turn without skidding.
Answer.
On slippery roads, it takes longer to stop and is harder to turn without skidding.
Question 34. Which of these describes how you should use the brake pedal on a steep downhill grade?
Release the brake when you are 5 miles per hour below your safe speed, then let your speed come back up to your safe speed and repeat braking again. Bring your speed down 5 miles per hour below your safe speed. Light steady pressure. With stronger pressure as the vehicle goes downhill.
Answer.
Release the brake when you are 5 miles per hour below your safe speed, then let your speed come back up to your safe speed and repeat braking again. Bring your speed down 5 miles per hour below your safe speed.
Question 35. The most important reason for being alert to hazards is so
accident reports will be accurate. You will have time to plan your escape if the hazard becomes an emergency. Law enforcement personnel can be called.
Answer.
You will have time to plan your escape if the hazard becomes an emergency.
Question 36. While driving, you should use your mirrors to check
where the rear of your vehicle is while you make turns. Your blind spots only. If your running lights are working properly.
Answer.
Where the rear of your vehicle is while you make turns.
Question 37. What is a hazardous materials placard?
Signs put on the outside of a vehicle which identify the hazard class of the cargo. Signs put on the back of a vehicle which identify the hazard class of the cargo. Signs put on the outside of a vehicle which identify the hazard class and weight of the vehicle.
Answer.
Signs put on the outside of a vehicle which identify the hazard class of the cargo.
Question 38. To prevent brake fade you should
apply constant hard pressure on the brakes. Coast down hills that are not very steep inclines. Select a gear that will keep your vehicle to a safe speed on steep downgrades.
Answer.
Select a gear that will keep your vehicle to a safe speed on steep downgrades.
Question 39. During a pre-trip inspection you discover an exhaust leak or power steering leak. You should
note the problem and continue your route. Go home because you shouldn't drive the vehicle this way. Report the problem and make arrangements for another vehicle to use.
Answer.
Report the problem and make arrangements for another vehicle to use.
Question 40. Name 2 situations where legal maximum weights may not be safe to haul.
During bad weather or in mountains. Through tunnels and over bridges. At night or during heavy traffic.
Answer.
During bad weather or in mountains.
Question 41. Which of the following may be a sign of tire failure?
Gentle thumping. A loud hissing noise. Wheels fishtailing.
Answer.
Wheels fishtailing.
Question 42. Escape ramps are
for combination vehicles only. Used to get out of a burning truck. Used to stop runaway vehicles.
Answer.
Used to stop runaway vehicles.
Question 43. The road you are driving on becomes very slippery due to glare ice. Which of these is a good thing to do in such a situation?
Downshift to stop. Apply the brakes often to keep the linings dry. Stop driving as soon as you can safely do so.
Answer.
Stop driving as soon as you can safely do so.
Question 44. Turn signals should be used
at least 350 feet before turning or changing lanes. At least 100 feet before turning or changing lanes. At least 250 feet before turning or changing lanes.
Answer.
At least 100 feet before turning or changing lanes.
Question 45. You are driving a truck with a manual transmission. You have to stop the truck on the shoulder while driving on an uphill grade. Which of these is a good rule to follow when putting it back in motion up the grade?
Let the vehicle roll straight backwards a few feet before you engage the clutch. Keep the clutch slipping while slowly accelerating. Use the parking brake to hold the vehicle until the clutch engages.
Answer.
Use the parking brake to hold the vehicle until the clutch engages.
Question 46. You are checking your brakes and suspension system for a pre-trip inspection. Which of these statements is true?
Brake shoes should be at least 1/32 inch thick. Both of these answers are correct. Brake pads should not have brake fluid on them.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 47. No matter how small the cargo is, it should have at least
1 tie down, 6 tie downs, 2 tie downs.
Answer.
2 tie downs.
Question 48. Which of these statements is not true about engine belts in hot weather?
Loose belts will not turn the water pump or fan on properly. Cracking is likely to occur, but it is not a safety threat. You can check the tightness of belts by pressing on them.
Answer.
Cracking is likely to occur, but it is not a safety threat.
Question 49. You must park on the side of a level, straight, 2-lane road. Where should you place the reflective triangle?
1 about 50 feet to the rear of the vehicle, 1 about 100 feet to the rear, and 1 about 100 feet to the front of the vehicle. 1 within 10 feet of the rear of the vehicle, 1 about 100 feet to the rear, and 1 about 200 feet to the rear. 1 within 10 feet of the rear of the vehicle, 1 about 100 feet to the rear, and 1 about 100 feet to the front of the vehicle.
Answer.
1 within 10 feet of the rear of the vehicle, 1 about 100 feet to the rear, and 1 about 100 feet to the front of the vehicle.
Question 50. The most common cause of serious vehicle skids is
driving too fast for road conditions, poorly adjusted brakes, overinflated tires.
Answer.
Driving too fast for road conditions.
Question 51. Tie downs must be of the proper type and strength. The combined strength of cargo tie downs must be strong enough to lift
twice the weight of the cargo tied down. 1 1/2 times the weight of the cargo tied down. 3 times the weight of the cargo tied down.
Answer.
1 1/2 times the weight of the cargo tied down.
Question 52. Which of these is a danger of crossing railroad tracks on dirt roads?
You could get hung up halfway across the tracks. Your tires could sink into the dirt and not cross the tracks. The ground underneath the tracks may not be stable.
Answer.
You could get hung up halfway across the tracks.
Question 53. If you have a heavy load that is slowing you down on an upgrade, you should
drive on the shoulder so that others can pass easily. Exit the roadway until traffic is lighter. Shift into a lower gear.
Answer.
Shift into a lower gear.
Question 54. Measuring back blood alcohol concentration is done by measuring a person's
height, age, body weight.
Answer.
Body weight.
Question 55. Over length, over width, and/or overweight loads require
Driving limited to certain times. Flashing lights. Both answers are correct.
Answer.
Both answers are correct.
Question 56. Underloaded front axles can cause the following:
Poor traction and damage to the tires. Both of these are true. Too much play in the steering wheel.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 57. When taking a break in the middle of your trip, you should check
Critical items such as tires, brakes, and cargo tie-downs. Critical items: windshield wiper blades, heater, and defroster. Call in and check with dispatch.
Answer.
Critical items such as tires, brakes, and cargo tie-downs.
Question 58. Which of these statements is not true about backing a heavy vehicle?
You should back slowly until you slightly bump into the dock. You should use a helper and communicate with hand signals. You should back and turn toward the driver's side whenever possible.
Answer.
You should back slowly until you slightly bump into the dock.
Question 59. Which of these statements is true about causes of vehicle fires?
Carrying a properly charged fire extinguisher will help prevent fires. Underinflated tires will not cause a vehicle fire. Poor trailer ventilation can cause flammable cargo to catch on fire.
Answer.
Poor trailer ventilation can cause flammable cargo to catch on fire.
Question 60. Which of the following should you not do in the event of hydraulic brake failure?
Pump the brakes. Shift up. Use the parking or emergency brake.
Answer.
Shift up.
Question 61. For your safety, when setting out reflective triangles, you should
Carry the triangles at your side. Keep them out of sight while you walk to the spots where you set them out. Hold the triangles between yourself and oncoming traffic.
Answer.
Hold the triangles between yourself and oncoming traffic.
Question 62. What is an advantage of going right instead of left around an obstacle?
It is much easier to turn a truck to the right. If you are blocked on both sides, a move to the right won't force anybody into an opposing traffic lane and a possible head-on collision. There is no advantage.
Answer.
If you are blocked on both sides, a move to the right won't force anybody into an opposing traffic lane and a possible head-on collision.
Question 63. It takes the body about hours to get rid of the alcohol in 4 drinks.
6, 4, 2.
Answer.
4.
Question 64. While driving, you should use your mirrors to check
if your running lights are working properly, your blind spots only, where the rear of your vehicle is while you make turns.
Answer.
Where the rear of your vehicle is while you make turns.
Question 65. Some liquid tanks are divided into several smaller tanks by
baffles, bulkheads, regulators.
Answer.
Bulkheads.
Question 66. Front end header boards.
Both answers are correct. Block the forward movement of your cargo. Protect you from your cargo in case of collision.
Answer.
Both answers are correct.
Question 67. Which of these best describes how you should use the brake pedal on a steep downhill grade?
Snubbing. With stronger pressure as the vehicle goes downhill. Repeated strong pressure, then release.
Answer.
Snubbing.
Question 68. Which of these things is a good thing to do when steering to avoid a crash?
Steer with one hand so that you can turn the wheel more quickly. Do not turn any more than needed to clear what is in your way. Apply the brakes while turning.
Answer.
Do not turn any more than needed to clear what is in your way.
Question 69. Overloading can have a bad effect on.
Both of these are true. Speed control. Steering.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 70. You are driving a new truck with a manual transmission. What gear will you probably have to use to take a long, steep downhill grade?
Shift into neutral and coast. A lower gear than you would use to climb the hill. The same gear you would use to climb the hill.
Answer.
A lower gear than you would use to climb the hill.
Question 71. If you are convicted for driving under the influence while driving a commercial vehicle, and this is your first offense, you will most likely get
a fine of $500. At least a 1-year suspension of your CDL. Probation for a period of 1 year.
Answer.
At least a 1-year suspension of your CDL.
Question 72. A key principle to remember about loading cargo is to keep the load
to the front, to the rear, Balanced in the cargo area.
Answer.
Balanced in the cargo area.
Question 73. Which of these is a danger of crossing railroad tracks on dirt roads?
The ground underneath the tracks may not be stable. You could get hung up halfway across the tracks. Your tires could sink into the dirt and not cross the tracks.
Answer.
You could get hung up halfway across the tracks.
Question 74. Why should you back towards the driver's side?
So you can see better. Backing toward the right side is dangerous. Both answers are correct.
Answer.
Both answers are correct.
Question 75. An en route inspection should include checking
Cargo doors or cargo securement. Tire temperature. All of these should be checked.
Answer.
All of these should be checked.
Question 76. It takes the body about hours to get rid of the alcohol in 4 drinks.
4, 2, 6.
Answer.
4.
Question 77. To correct a drive wheel braking skid you should
Turn slowly. Counter steer. Keep your foot off the clutch.
Answer.
Counter steer.
Question 78. Which item below lists almost all or all the emergency equipment that is required on a school bus?
A fire extinguisher, flashlight, fuses, electrical fuses, if your vehicle uses them, a crowbar, emergency triangles, and a first aid kit, with an emergency medical card for each student inside the first aid kit. A can of brake fluid, flashlight, and a new bottle of window washer fluid. A crowbar and a fire extinguisher only.
Answer.
A fire extinguisher, flashlight, fuses, electrical fuses, if your vehicle uses them, a crowbar, emergency triangles, and a first aid kit, with an emergency medical card for each student inside the first aid kit.
Question 79. How do you test the hydraulic brakes for leaks?
Pump the brake pedal 3 times, then apply firm pressure to the pedal and hold it for 5 seconds. The pedal should not move. Drive 20 miles per hour and slam on the brakes. Drive slowly and pump the brake pedal. Make sure it doesn't hit the floor.
Answer.
Pump the brake pedal 3 times, then apply firm pressure to the pedal and hold it for 5 seconds. The pedal should not move.
Question 80. The most common cause of serious vehicle skids is
Poorly adjusted brakes. Driving too fast for road conditions. Overinflated tires.
Answer.
Driving too fast for road conditions.
Question 81. You are checking your brakes and suspension system for a pre-trip inspection. Which of these statements is true?
Brake pads should not have brake fluid on them. Brake shoes should be at least 1/32 inch thick. Both of these answers are correct.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 82. You should back and turn toward the driver's side.
If you do not have someone to help you, so you can watch the rear of the vehicle by looking out the side window. Unless you would have to drive around the block first.
Answer.
So you can watch the rear of the vehicle by looking out the side window.
Question 83. Which of these statements is not true?
A drinker can control how fast his or her body absorbs and gets rid of alcohol. Back is determined by how fast you drink, how much you drink, and how much you weigh. Alcohol goes directly from the stomach to the bloodstream.
Answer.
A drinker can control how fast his or her body absorbs and gets rid of alcohol.
Question 84. Some liquid tanks are divided into several smaller tanks by
Baffles, bulkheads, regulators.
Answer.
Bulkheads.
Question 85. Which of these statements about certain types of cargo is true?
When liquids are hauled, the tank should always be loaded completely full. Oversized loads can be hauled without special permits during daylight hours. Unstable loads such as hanging meat or livestock require extra caution on curves.
Answer.
Unstable loads such as hanging meat or livestock require extra caution on curves.
Question 86. When driving at night, use your low beams when an oncoming vehicle is within
400 feet, 500 feet, 300 feet.
Answer.
500 feet.
Question 87. When approaching a traffic light that has been green for a long time, you should
accelerate so you get through the light. Continue at your current speed. Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop.
Answer.
Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop.
Question 88. As part of your pre-trip inspection you must
check for overloads. Check for poorly balanced weight. Both of these are correct.
Answer.
Both of these are correct.
Question 89. Dry bulk tanks and hanging meat
have low centers of gravity. Are unstable loads. Do not require special care.
Answer.
Are unstable loads.
Question 90. The new blood alcohol concentration for commercial drivers to be considered intoxicated when driving a commercial vehicle is
0.06, 0.02, 0.04.
Answer.
0.04.
Question 91. Which of the following statements about backing is true?
You should back and turn towards the driver's side whenever possible. Both of these are true. Backing is always dangerous.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 92. Why should you be in the proper gear before starting down a hill?
Because you need to be in the same gear at the bottom of the hill. You will not be able to shift into a lower gear once you're going down a hill. Because the clutch is made to be used on even surfaces.
Answer.
You will not be able to shift into a lower gear once you're going down a hill.
Question 93. You should back and turn toward the driver's side.
If you do not have someone to help you. Unless you would have to drive around the block first. So you can watch the rear of the vehicle by looking out the side window.
Answer.
So you can watch the rear of the vehicle by looking out the side window.
Question 94. For your safety, when setting out reflective triangles you should
keep them out of sight while you walk to the spots where you set them out. Hold the triangles between yourself and oncoming traffic. Carry the triangles at your side.
Answer.
Hold the triangles between yourself and oncoming traffic.
Question 95. The purpose of a baffle is to
keep expansion of load down. Separate the load. Control the load surge.
Answer.
Control the load surge.
Question 96. Controlled braking
involves locking the wheels for short periods of time. Is used to keep a vehicle in a straight line when braking. Can be used while you are turning sharply.
Answer.
Is used to keep a vehicle in a straight line when braking.
Question 97. Which of these is true about the radiator shutters and the window front?
You should remove ice from the radiator shutters. The engine may overheat if the window front is left open. The window front should be closed tightly.
Answer.
You should remove ice from the radiator shutters.
Question 98. What are some things to do at an accident scene to prevent another accident?
If you're stopping to help, park away from the accident. Try to get your vehicle to the side of the road. All of these answers are correct.
Answer.
All of these answers are correct.
Question 99. What factors determine your selection of safe speed when going down a long steep downgrade?
Size of vehicle, traffic conditions, curves in the road. Total weight of the vehicle, length of the grade, steepness, road conditions, and weather. Condition of the brakes, radio bulletins, and alertness of the driver.
Answer.
Total weight of the vehicle, length of the grade, steepness, road conditions, and weather.
Question 100. Underloaded front axles can cause the following:
Poor traction and damage to the tires. Too much play in the steering wheel. Both of these are true.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 101. Which of these statements about speed management is true?
On packed snow, you should reduce your speed by about 1/2. Both of these answers are true. On a wet road, you should reduce your speed by about 1/3.
Answer.
Both of these answers are true.
Question 102. What is a hazard?
A small animal. A flashing amber light. Any road condition or other road user that is a possible danger.
Answer.
Any road condition or other road user that is a possible danger.
Question 103. The oil pressure gauge should come up to normal within how long after starting the engine?
Seconds. Minutes. It does not matter.
Answer.
Seconds.
Question 104. If you are stopped at a rest area and found to have a blood alcohol concentration of 0.02, you will
be placed out of service for 48 hours. Be placed out of service for 72 hours. Be placed out of service for 24 hours.
Answer.
Be placed out of service for 24 hours.
Question 105. A helper should be used to help back your vehicle.
Whenever possible. When you need to back on a curved path. When you have a trailer.
Answer.
Whenever possible.
Question 106. What is the minimum tread depth for front tires?
2 30-seconds inch. 4 30-seconds inch. 1 30-second inch.
Answer.
4 30-seconds inch.
Question 107. Which of these is not required knowledge for drivers needing hazmat endorsement?
Which products can be loaded together? Basic chemistry. When to use placards.
Answer.
Basic chemistry.
Question 108. Which item below lists almost all or all the emergency equipment that is required on a school bus?
A crowbar and a fire extinguisher only. A can of brake fluid, flashlight, and a new bottle of window washer fluid. A fire extinguisher, flashlight, fuses, electrical fuses, if your vehicle uses them, a crowbar, emergency triangles, and a first aid kit, with an emergency medical card for each student inside the first aid kit.
Answer.
A fire extinguisher, flashlight, fuses, electrical fuses, if your vehicle uses them, a crowbar, emergency triangles, and a first aid kit, with an emergency medical card for each student inside the first aid kit.
Question 109. What is the minimum length for mud flaps?
Within 8 inches of the surface of the road. Within 10 inches of the surface of the road. Within 6 inches from the surface of the road.
Answer.
Within 8 inches of the surface of the road.
Question 110. Prior to driving, what are some of the items you should check the interior of the bus for?
Both of these answers are correct. Trash and clothing. School books and student belongings.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 111. What should you do if you see a hazard in the roadway?
Use your four-way flashers or brake lights to warn others. Stop quickly and pull to the side of the road. Swerve around it and get back into your lane.
Answer.
Use your four-way flashers or brake lights to warn others.
Question 112. What are 2 ways to know when to shift?
Use engine speed, RPM, and road signs. Use engine speed, RPM, and use road speed, miles per hour. Use your watch and engine sounds.
Answer.
Use engine speed, RPM, and use road speed, miles per hour.
Question 113. Which of these statements about using mirrors is true?
You should look at a mirror for several seconds at a time. You should check your mirrors twice for a lane change. There are blind spots that your mirrors cannot show you.
Answer.
There are blind spots that your mirrors cannot show you.
Question 114. Which piece of emergency equipment should be in your vehicle?
First aid kit. Warning devices for parked vehicles. Circuit breakers.
Answer.
Warning devices for parked vehicles.
Question 115. To avoid rollbacks when you start, you should
partly engage the clutch before you take your right foot off the brake. Engage the clutch very quickly. Stop on a flat area.
Answer.
Partly engage the clutch before you take your right foot off the brake.
Question 116. If you are being tailgated, you should
signal the tailgater when it is safe to pass you. Flash your brake lights. Increase your following distance.
Answer.
Increase your following distance.
Question 117. Which of these things is a good thing to do when steering to avoid a crash?
Apply the brakes while turning. Steer with one hand so that you can turn the wheel more quickly. Do not turn any more than needed to clear what is in your way.
Answer.
Do not turn any more than needed to clear what is in your way.
Question 118. Which of these items is checked in a pre-trip inspection?
Wiper blades. Whether all vehicle lights are working and clean. All of these answers are correct.
Answer.
All of these answers are correct.
Question 119. What is the first thing you should try to do if your brakes fail while driving downhill?
Get off the road as soon as possible. Call or radio for help. Try to use your parking brake to stop.
Answer.
Get off the road as soon as possible.
Question 120. It is important to shift gears correctly to keep
the engine warm, the engine oil flowing, control of the vehicle.
Answer.
Control of the vehicle.
Question 121. Which of the following best describes how sleep debt can be paid off?
Overcome it with willpower and non-sleep aids. It can only be paid off by sleeping. It will go away by itself over a period of time.
Answer.
It can only be paid off by sleeping.
Question 122. Which of these is not a proper use of vehicle lights?
Flashing your brake lights to warn someone behind you that you are slowing down. Flashing your brake lights to stop someone from tailgating. Turning on your headlights during the days when visibility is reduced.
Answer.
Flashing your brake lights to stop someone from tailgating.
Question 123. Which of these tell you that cargo contains hazardous materials?
A hazardous materials placard on the vehicle. A 4-inch, diamond-shaped hazardous materials label on the container. Both of these answers are correct.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 124. How does bleeding tar affect the road surface and driving conditions?
It is very sticky, slowing down your vehicle. Tar in the road pavement rises to the road surface in very hot weather, causing the roads to become very slippery. It does not affect the road surface or driving conditions.
Answer.
Tar in the road pavement rises to the road surface in very hot weather, causing the roads to become very slippery.
Question 125. Gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR, means the following.
Maximum GVW specified by manufacturer for a single vehicle including its load. Maximum GVW specified by manufacturer for a single vehicle. Maximum GVW specified by the manufacturer.
Answer.
Maximum GEVW specified by manufacturer for a single vehicle including its load.
Question 126. Which of these statements about cargo loading is true?
If the shipper loads the cargo, the driver is not responsible for overloading. The legal maximum weight allowed by a state can be considered safe for all driving conditions. State laws dictate legal weight limits.
Answer.
State laws dictate legal weight limits.
Question 127. Containerized loads
should come with their own tie-down devices. Are generally used for freight carried part way by rail or ship. Do not need to be inspected or secured by the driver.
Answer.
Are generally used for freight carried part way by rail or ship.
Question 128. What is black ice?
Rain and snow mixed. A thin layer of ice clear enough that you can see the road underneath it. Dirty snow.
Answer.
A thin layer of ice clear enough that you can see the road underneath it.
Question 129. Which of these is correct regarding brake shoes?
Brake shoes should not be worn dangerously thin. Brake shoes should have the same thickness of a penny. Brake shoes should be larger than a quarter on the steering axle.
Answer.
Brake shoes should not be worn dangerously thin.
Question 130. How far ahead should you look?
5-10 seconds. 12-15 seconds. 15-30 seconds.
Answer.
12-15 seconds.
Question 131. Which of these tell you that cargo contains hazardous materials?
Both of these answers are correct. A hazardous materials placard on the vehicle. A 4-inch, diamond-shaped hazardous materials label on the container.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 132. Which of these can cause the vehicle to skid?
Not enough weight on the front axle. Over-acceleration. Both of these answers are correct.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 133. The oil pressure gauge should come up to normal within how long after starting the engine?
Seconds. It does not matter. Minutes.
Answer.
Seconds.
Question 134. Which of these is a good rule to follow when using a fire extinguisher?
Keep as close to the fire as possible. Aim at the base of the fire. Stay downwind of the fire.
Answer.
Aim at the base of the fire.
Question 135. What three things related to cargo are the driver's responsibility?
weighing the cargo, securing the cargo, and delivering the cargo. Inspecting the cargo, hauling the cargo, and securing the cargo. Inspecting the cargo, recognizing overloads, and properly securing the cargo.
Answer.
Inspecting the cargo, recognizing overloads, and properly securing the cargo.
Question 136. Which of these statements is true about vehicle fires?
If the cargo or box trailer catches on fire, open the doors as soon as you can. A burning tire should be cooled with water. If your engine is on fire, open the hood as soon as you can.
Answer.
A burning tire should be cooled with water.
Question 137. You are driving in the right lane of a 4-lane, undivided road. You come over a hill and find a car stopped ahead in your lane. You do not have room to stop. The hill blocks your view to the rear. The shoulder is clear. Which of these is most likely the best action to take?
Steer into the left lane. Steer to the right. Use hard braking and brace for collision.
Answer.
Steer to the right.
Question 138. While driving, ice builds up on your wipers and they no longer clean the windshield. You should
Keep driving, and turn your defroster on. Drive slower until you can see again. Keep driving, and spray the windshield with washer fluid. Stop safely and fix the problem.
Answer.
Stop safely and fix the problem.
Question 139. When approaching a traffic light that has been green for a long time, you should
Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop. Continue at your current speed. Accelerate so you get through the light.
Answer.
Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop.
Question 140. Some liquid tanks are divided into several smaller tanks by
Baffles. Regulators. Bulkheads.
Answer.
Bulkheads.
Question 141. Retarders
Cause extra brake wear. Can cause the drive wheels to skid when they have poor traction. Allow you to disconnect the steering axle brakes.
Answer.
Can cause the drive wheels to skid when they have poor traction.
Question 142. Dry bulk tanks require special care because
Both of these are true. The load can shift. They have a high center of gravity.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 143. Which of these statements about speed management is true?
On a wet road, you should reduce your speed by about 1/3. On packed snow, you should reduce your speed by about 1/2. Both of these answers are true.
Answer.
Both of these answers are true.
Question 144. Which of these can cause the vehicle to skid?
Any of these can cause a vehicle to skid. Not enough weight on the front axle. Over acceleration.
Answer.
Any of these can cause a vehicle to skid.
Question 145. What should you do when your vehicle hydroplanes?
Release the accelerator. Countersteer hard. Accelerate slightly.
Answer.
Release the accelerator.
Question 146. Cargo that can shift should have at least tight ounces.
2, 3, 1.
Answer.
2.
Question 147. Which of these statements about using mirrors is true?
There are blind spots that your mirrors cannot show you. You should look at a mirror for several seconds at a time. You should check your mirrors twice for a lane change.
Answer.
There are blind spots that your mirrors cannot show you.
Question 148. The most important reason for being alert to hazards is so
you will have time to plan your escape if the hazard becomes an emergency. Accident reports will be accurate. Law enforcement personnel can be called.
Answer.
You will have time to plan your escape if the hazard becomes an emergency.
Question 149. What is the minimum tread depth for front tires?
1/32 inch. 2/32 inch. 4/32 inch.
Answer.
4/32 inch.
Question 150. Which of these statements about drinking alcohol is true?
Not everyone who drinks is affected by alcohol. Coffee and fresh air will help a drinker sober up. A few beers have the same effect on driving as a few shots of whiskey or few glasses of wine.
Answer.
A few beers have the same effect on driving as a few shots of whiskey or few glasses of wine.
Question 151. What is an escape ramp?
A quick way to get out of town. Ramps to get on and off an interstate highway fast. Ramps that are located a few miles from the top of a downgrade to help you stop.
Answer.
Ramps that are located a few miles from the top of a downgrade to help you stop.
Question 152. You are driving in the right lane of a 4-lane, undivided road. You come over a hill and find a car stopped ahead in your lane. You do not have room to stop. The hill blocks your view to the rear. The shoulder is clear. Which of these is most likely the best action to take?
Steer to the right. Steer into the left lane. Use hard braking and brace for collision.
Answer.
Steer to the right.
Question 153, Bridge formulas permit.
Less maximum axle weight for axles that are close together. The same maximum axle weight for any axle spacing. Less maximum axle weight for axles that are far apart.
Answer.
Less maximum axle weight for axles that are close together.
Question 154, Brake fade.
Can be caused by the brakes becoming too hot. Can be corrected by letting up on the brakes for 1-2 seconds and then reapplying them. Only occurs with drum brakes.
Answer.
Can be caused by the brakes becoming too hot.
Question 155, What is a pull-up?
A maneuver performed by a tow truck to pick up an overturned truck. Pulling forward while backing a trailer to reposition it. When pulling off the shoulder, you pull up until the trailer is straight.
Answer.
Pulling forward while backing a trailer to reposition it.
Question 156, Which of these statements about managing space is true?
Smaller vehicles require more space to stop than larger ones. Many accidents are caused by drivers keeping too much space in front of their vehicles. When the road is slippery, you should keep much more space in front of your vehicle.
Answer.
When the road is slippery, you should keep much more space in front of your vehicle.
Question 157, Medical certificates must be renewed every
2 years. 4 years. 9 months.
Answer.
2 years.
Question 158, Overloading can have a bad effect on
Steering. Speed control. Both of these are true.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 159, Which of these is a danger of crossing railroad tracks on dirt roads?
Your tires could sink into the dirt and not cross the tracks. You could get hung up halfway across the tracks. The ground underneath the tracks may not be stable.
Answer.
You could get hung up halfway across the tracks.
Question 160. You must park on the side of a level, straight, 4-lane, divided highway. Where should you place the 3 reflective triangles?
One about 10 feet from the rear of the vehicle, one about 100 feet to the rear, and one about 100 feet from the front of the vehicle. One within 10 feet of the rear of the vehicle, one about 100 feet to the rear, and one about 200 feet to the rear. One within 10 feet of the front of the vehicle, one about 200 feet from the front, and one about 100 feet to the rear.
Answer.
One within 10 feet of the rear of the vehicle, one about 100 feet to the rear, and one about 200 feet to the rear.
Question 161. If you cannot see well with your headlights when driving in an area with few streetlights on a clear night, you should
use your high beams when legal and keep your interior light off. Find another route that is better lit. Turn your interior lights on.
Answer.
Use your high beams when legal and keep your interior light off.
Question 162. When roads are slippery, you should
decrease the distance that you look ahead of your vehicle. Stop and test the traction while going up hills. Take turns as carefully as possible.
Answer.
Take turns as carefully as possible.
Question 163. As the blood alcohol concentration, back, goes up, what happens?
The drinker can sober up in less time. The drinker more dearly sees how alcohol is affecting him, her. Judgment and self-control are affected.
Answer.
Judgment and self-control are affected.
Question 164. To correct a drive wheel braking skid, you should
turn slowly. Countersteer. Keep your foot off the clutch.
Answer.
Countersteer.
Question 165. Which of these statements is true regarding the use of drugs while driving?
Use of amphetamines, like speed, is allowed as long as you are using the drugs to stay awake. No prescription or non-prescription drugs are allowed at any time for any reason. Prescription drugs are allowed as long as the doctor says the drugs will not affect safe driving ability.
Answer.
Prescription drugs are allowed as long as the doctor says the drugs will not affect safe driving ability.
Question 166. The height of the vehicle's center of gravity is very important for safe handling.
Stop faster. Get stuck. Roll over.
Answer.
Roll over.
Question 167. If you are stopped at a rest area and found to have a blood alcohol concentration of 0.02, you will
be placed out of service for 72 hours. Be placed out of service for 48 hours. Be placed out of service for 24 hours.
Answer.
Be placed out of service for 24 hours.
Question 168. What is the definition of sleep debt?
The money you owe hotels after resting there. The cumulative effect of not getting enough sleep. The amount of sleep you get each day.
Answer.
The cumulative effect of not getting enough sleep.
Question 169. You are checking your wheels and rims for a pre-trip inspection. Which of these statements is true?
A vehicle can be safely driven with one missing lug nut on a wheel. Rust around lug nuts may mean that they are loose. Cracked wheels or rims can be used if they have been welded.
Answer.
Rust around lug nuts may mean that they are loose.
Question 170. The parking brake should be tested while the vehicle is
moving forward slowly, moving at highway speed, moving back slowly.
Answer.
Moving forward slowly.
Question 171. Stab braking should not be used on vehicles with
air brakes, anti-lock brakes, spring brakes.
Answer.
Anti-lock brakes.
Question 172. What things should you check during a trip?
Check load stability by slightly swerving left to right in your lane. Watch gauges, mirrors, and use your senses to check for problems. Look, listen, and smell. Map, directions, and weather report.
Answer.
Watch gauges, mirrors, and use your senses to check for problems. Look, listen, and smell.
Question 173. Controlled braking
is used to keep a vehicle in a straight line when braking. Can be used while you are turning sharply. Involves locking the wheels for short periods of time.
Answer.
Is used to keep a vehicle in a straight line when braking.
Question 174. Every time you park your vehicle and shut the engine off, you should
apply the parking brake. Turn the steering wheel as far to the left as you can. Leave it in gear, if it has a manual transmission.
Answer.
Apply the parking brake.
Question 175. If you must stop on a hill in a two-way, two-lane road, how far back should you place your reflective triangles?
Within 250 feet behind the vehicle. Within 100 feet behind the vehicle. Within 500 feet behind the vehicle.
Answer.
Within 500 feet behind the vehicle.
Question 176. If a straight vehicle, no trailer or articulation, goes into a front wheel skid, it will
go to the right, slide sideways and spin out. Go straight ahead even if the steering wheel is turned.
Answer.
Go straight ahead even if the steering wheel is turned.
Question 177. To prevent brake fade, you should
select a gear that will keep your vehicle to a safe speed on steep downgrades. Apply constant hard pressure on the brakes. Coast down hills that are not very steep inclines.
Answer.
Select a gear that will keep your vehicle to a safe speed on steep downgrades.
Question 178. A key principle to remember about loading cargo is to keep the load
to the rear, to the front, balanced in the cargo area.
Answer.
Balanced in the cargo area.
Question 179. For an average commercial vehicle being driven at 55 miles per hour on dry pavement, it will take about to bring the vehicle to stop.
Half the length of a football field, 150 feet. Twice the length of the vehicle. The length of a football field, 300 feet.
Answer.
The length of a football field, 300 feet.
Question 180. When approaching a traffic light that has been green for a long time, you should
continue at your current speed. Accelerate so you get through the light. Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop.
Answer.
Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop.
Question 181. Which of these statements is true about backing heavy vehicles?
Helpers should be out of sight and use only spoken signals to communicate with the driver. You should avoid backing whenever you can. It's safer to back toward the right side of the vehicle.
Answer.
You should avoid backing whenever you can.
Question 182. On which fires can you use the ABC fire extinguisher?
Burning tires or cloth. Electrical fires. All of these are correct.
Answer.
All of these are correct.
Question 183. Name some things you should check on the front of your vehicle during your pre-trip inspection.
Windshield wipers, mirrors, and hood latches. Low beams, high beams, four-way flashers, and turn signals. Oil, transmission, air compressor, and radiator.
Answer.
Low beams, high beams, four-way flashers, and turn signals.
Question 184. If you are stopped at a rest area and found to have a blood alcohol concentration of 0.02, you will
be placed out of service for 72 hours. Be placed out of service for 24 hours. Be placed out of service for 48 hours.
Answer.
Be placed out of service for 24 hours.
Question 185. A vehicle is loaded with most of the weight on the steering axle. What may result?
Too little traction on the steering axle. Hard steering and possible damage to the tires. Better handling.
Answer.
Hard steering and possible damage to the tires.
Question 186. If you are driving a long distance, you should
stop often and take short breaks before you feel really drowsy or tired. Avoid short breaks but keep the window open. Take a short break once or twice during the trip when you are feeling tired or drowsy.
Answer.
Stop often and take short breaks before you feel really drowsy or tired.
Question 187. When you drive in the mountains, You will have to use lower gears to drive safely down grades. Which of these does not affect your choice of gears?
Weight of the load. Length of the grade. Tire tread type.
Answer.
Tire tread type.
Question 188. To correct a drive wheel braking skid you should
keep your foot off the clutch. Turn slowly. Countersteer.
Answer.
Countersteer.
Question 189. Name some important steering system parts.
Tie rod, spindle, and pavement arm. Mainspring, axle, and spring shackle. Leaf spring, vehicle frame, and torque rod.
Answer.
Tie rod, spindle, and pavement arm.
Question 190. You are driving a truck with a manual transmission. You have to stop the truck on the shoulder while driving on an uphill grade. Which of these is a good rule to follow when putting it back in motion up the grade?
Let the vehicle roll straight backwards a few feet before you engage the clutch. Keep the clutch slipping while slowly accelerating. Use the parking brake to hold the vehicle until the clutch engages.
Answer.
Use the parking brake to hold the vehicle until the clutch engages.
Question 191. Why make emergency plans when you see a hazard?
To avoid getting a ticket. To have something to do while driving. In order to protect yourself and others.
Answer.
In order to protect yourself and others.
Question 192. Blocking your cargo to keep it from sliding must be done at the
cargo deck. Front, back, or sides of a piece of cargo. Front of a piece of cargo only.
Answer.
Front, back, or sides of a piece of cargo.
Question 193. Overloading can have a bad effect on.
Both of these are true. Speed control. Steering.
Answer.
Both of these are true.
Question 194. Which of the following statements is true?
Most people are more alert at night than during the day. Many heavy vehicle accidents occur between midnight and 6 a.m. Most hazards are more easily seen at night than during the day.
Answer.
Many heavy vehicle accidents occur between midnight and 6 a.m.
Question 195. How do you calculate how many seconds of following distance space you have?
Wait until the vehicle ahead of you passes a clear landmark, then count off the seconds until you reach the same spot, then multiply your figure by 2. Divide your speed by 4 and add 1 second for every 10 feet of trailer you are hauling. Wait until the vehicle ahead of you passes a clear landmark, then count off the seconds until you reach the same spot.
Answer.
Wait until the vehicle ahead of you passes a clear landmark, then count off the seconds until you reach the same spot.
Question 196. Which of the following does not provide extra gears on some trucks?
Auxiliary transmissions. Multi-speed rear axles. Automatic transmissions.
Answer.
Automatic transmissions.
Question 197. You are checking your brakes and suspension system for a pre-trip inspection. Which of these statements is true?
Brake shoes should be at least 1/32 inch thick. Both of these answers are correct. Brake pads should not have brake fluid on them.
Answer.
Both of these answers are correct.
Question 198. When backing, why is it important to use a helper?
There are blind spots you can't see. It makes people think you're a better driver. It's more fun when you have help.
Answer.
There are blind spots you can't see.
Question 199. As part of your pre-trip inspection you must.
Both of these are correct. Check for overloads. Check for poorly balanced weight.
Answer.
Both of these are correct.
Question 200. When should the pre-trip inspection report from the last driver be reviewed?
Once per week. It doesn't have to be reviewed during your pre-trip inspection.
Answer.
During your pre-trip inspection.
Question 201. On which fires can you use the ABC fire extinguisher?
Burning tires or cloth. Electrical fires. All of these are correct.
Answer.
All of these are correct.
Question 202. Which of these statements about tires and hot weather driving is true?
If a tire is too hot to touch, you should drive on it to cool it off. The air pressure of a tire decreases as the temperature of the tire increases. You should inspect your tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather.
Answer.
You should inspect your tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather.
Question 203. You should avoid driving through deep puddles or flowing water, but if you cannot, which of these steps can help keep your brakes working?
Pressing both the brake pedal and the accelerator firmly after coming out of the water. Gently putting on the brakes while driving through the water. Turning on your brake heaters.
Answer.
Gently putting on the brakes while driving through the water.
Question 204. Which of these statements about using mirrors is true?
You should check your mirrors twice for a lane change. There are blind spots that your mirrors cannot show you. You should look at a mirror for several seconds at a time.
Answer.
There are blind spots that your mirrors cannot show you.
Question 205. What are some advantages of going right instead of left around an obstacle?
Both answers are correct. You can avoid a head-on collision. Someone may be passing to the left.
Answer.
Both answers are correct.
Question 206. Name 2 situations where legal maximum weights may not be safe to haul.
Through tunnels and over bridges. At night or during heavy traffic. During bad weather or in mountains.
Answer.
During bad weather or in mountains.
Question 207. Which of these statements is true about backing heavy vehicles?
You should avoid backing whenever you can. Helpers should be out of sight and use only spoken signals to communicate with the driver. It's safer to back toward the right side of the vehicle.
Answer.
You should avoid backing whenever you can.
Question 208. Your vehicle has hydraulic brakes. When traveling on a level road, you press the brake pedal and find that it goes to the floor. Which of these statements is true?
Pumping the brake will generate enough pressure to stop the vehicle. The parking brake will not work because it is part of the same hydraulic system. Shifting into neutral will help slow the vehicle.
Answer.
Pumping the brake will generate enough pressure to stop the vehicle.
Question 209. When should you downshift automatic transmissions?
When going up grades. When going around curves. When going down grades.
Answer.
When going down grades.
Question 210. Which of these items is not checked on a pre-trip inspection?
Whether all vehicle lights are working and clean. Cargo securement. Amount of fuel in the vehicle.
Answer.
Amount of fuel in the vehicle.
Question 211. Which of the following best describes how sleep debt can be paid off?
It can only be paid off by sleeping. Overcome it with willpower and non-sleep aids. It will go away by itself over a period of time.
Answer.
It can only be paid off by sleeping.
Question 212. Gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR, means the following.
Maximum GVW specified by the manufacturer. Maximum GVW specified by manufacturer for a single vehicle including its load. Maximum GVW specified by manufacturer for a single vehicle.
Answer.
Maximum GVW specified by manufacturer for a single vehicle including its load.
Question 213. What is the minimum length for mud flaps?
Within 8 inches of the surface of the road. Within 6 inches from the surface of the road. Within 10 inches of the surface of the road.
Answer.
Within 8 inches of the surface of the road.
Question 214. When driving in cold weather conditions, your tire tread should
have at least 430 seconds inch tread on it. Provide enough traction to steer and push the vehicle through snow. Have at least 230 seconds inch tread on it.
Answer.
Provide enough traction to steer and push the vehicle through snow.
Question 215. During what time in your pre-trip inspection of a school bus do you check the back emergency door to ensure it is closed?
During Step 4, lights first half, the inside walk-through. Only during the inside walk-through. Only during the operation inspection of the pre-trip.
Answer.
During Step 4, lights first half, the inside walk-through.
Question 216. There are 3 types of vehicle inspections. Which of these is one of them?
Post-trip and pre-trip. En route. All of these answers are correct.
Answer.
All of these answers are correct.
Question 217. The tendency for long commercial vehicles to swing wide on turns is called
off-tracking, hydroplaning, fishtailing.
Answer.
Off-tracking.
Question 218. Which of these statements about tires and hot weather driving is true?
The air pressure of a tire decreases as the temperature of the tire increases. You should inspect your tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather. If a tire is too hot to touch, you should drive on it to cool it off.
Answer.
You should inspect your tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather.
Question 219. Heavy vehicles must sometimes travel more slowly than other traffic. Which of these is not a good rule to follow when you are driving such a vehicle?
Stay to the right. Turn on your flashers if it is legal to do so. Signal other drivers when it is safe for them to pass you.
Answer.
Signal other drivers when it is safe for them to pass you.
Question 220. Brake fade
Can be caused by the brakes becoming too hot. Only occurs with drum brakes. Can be corrected by letting up on the brakes for 1-2 seconds and then reapplying them.
Answer.
Can be caused by the brakes becoming too hot.
Question 221. As part of your pre-trip inspection you must.
Both of these are correct. Check for poorly balanced weight. Check for overloads.
Answer.
Both of these are correct.
Question 222. Which of the following does not provide extra gears on some trucks?
Auxiliary transmissions. Multi-speed rear axles. Automatic transmissions.
Answer.
Automatic transmissions.
Question 223. What is a hazardous materials placard?
Signs put on the back of a vehicle which identify the hazard class of the cargo. Signs put on the outside of a vehicle which identify the hazard class of the cargo. Signs put on the outside of a vehicle which identify the hazard class and weight of the vehicle.
Answer.
Signs put on the outside of a vehicle which identify the hazard class of the cargo.
Question 224. You are driving a heavy vehicle and must exit a highway using an off-ramp that curves downhill. You should
slow down to the posted speed limit for the off-ramp. Slow down to a safe speed before taking the curve. Wait until you are in the curve before downshifting.
Answer.
Slow down to a safe speed before taking the curve.
Question 225. As the blood alcohol concentration, back, goes up, what happens?
The drinker more dearly sees how alcohol is affecting him, her. The drinker can sober up in less time. Judgment and self-control are affected.
Answer.
Judgment and self-control are affected.
Question 226. One can recognize hazardous materials by looking at the containers.
Shape. Color. Label.
Answer.
Label.
Question 227. Why make emergency plans when you see a hazard?
To avoid getting a ticket. To have something to do while driving. In order to protect yourself and others.
Answer.
In order to protect yourself and others.
Question 228. Which of these is a proper use of vehicle lights and flashers?
Flashing your brake lights to warn someone behind you of a hazard that will require slowing down. Flashing your brake lights to warn someone behind you that you are going to stop on the road. All of these are correct.
Answer.
All of these are correct.
Question 229. You are driving a 40-foot vehicle at 35 miles per hour. The road is dry, and visibility is good. What is the least amount of space you should keep in front of your vehicle to be safe?
6 seconds. 2 seconds. 4 seconds.
Answer.
4 seconds.
Question 230. If you must stop on a hill in a two-way, two-lane road, how far back should you place your reflective triangles?
Within 100 feet behind the vehicle. Within 500 feet behind the vehicle. Within 250 feet behind the vehicle.
Answer.
Within 500 feet behind the vehicle.
Question 231. When approaching a traffic light that has been green for a long time, you should
continue at your current speed. Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop. Accelerate so you get through the light.
answer.
Start to slow down so you will be ready to stop.
Question 232. Is it legal to drive with 1/4 of a vehicle's leaf springs broken or missing?
It doesn't make any difference as long as you go the speed limit. Number: yes.
Answer.
Number:
Question 233. Your vehicle has hydraulic brakes. When traveling on a level road, you press the brake pedal and find that it goes to the floor. Which of these statements is true?
The parking brake will not work because it is part of the same hydraulic system. Pumping the brake will generate enough pressure to stop the vehicle. Shifting into neutral will help slow the vehicle.
Answer.
Pumping the brake will generate enough pressure to stop the vehicle.
Question 234. If the vehicle in front of you is smaller than yours, it can probably
outrun you. Take turns faster than you. Stop faster than you.
Answer.
Stop faster than you.
Question 235. Which of these is not a danger when an automatic transmission is forced into a lower gear at a high speed?
Loss of steering control. Damage to the transmission. Loss of engine braking effect.
Answer.
Loss of steering control.
Question 236. To prevent a load from shifting, there should be at least one tie down for every feet of cargo.
7, 10, 15.
Answer.
10.
Question 237. Gross vehicle weight, GVW, means the following.
Total weight of the vehicle axle. The total weight of a single vehicle including its load. Total weight of a single vehicle.
Answer.
The total weight of a single vehicle including its load.
Question 238. What are some advantages of going right instead of left around an obstacle?
Someone may be passing to the left. Both answers are correct. You can avoid a head-on collision.
Answer.
Both answers are correct.
Question 239. Which of these is not caused by rough acceleration?
Mechanical damage. Damage to the coupling. Tire damage.
Answer.
Tire damage. Thank you for watching the video and wish you will get your driver license soon.